if you do not live within your limitations, one, you will live as if you don't need God.
Yeah.
And then B, you will stretch yourself out to the point, like you said, where you're not leaving room for creativity. You're not coming in with better ideas. You're not coming in inspired because you haven't had the time to just breathe and just sit and take the time to really just let the thing that you just completed live. What is up, everyone? We are back with another episode of Shaping the Culture. Now, let's just get to it. The whole secular sacred divide. There is no distinction in the scriptures. Some of us have trust issues with God, and some of us, it's like, does God really got us? You can't engage the culture with the gospel that first has not engaged you. Like, you know how people are like, oh, that's just who I am. Nah.
Keep. Drop the mic. Drop the mic.
Shaping the code. What is up, everyone? We are back with another episode of Shaping the Culture. Hope all is well with you all. We just had a little back and forth.
Had an episode.
Talk about Kendrick and Drake. We're going to leave that in the group chats.
Got to. But it's a great time.
It's a great time. What a time to be alive.
I do have a quick question for you. Do you think as Christians, I have my own resolve. This is just for the sake of conversation.
Okay.
Do you think, like, as Christians, that's something that we should entertain, that we can entertain in good faith?
You know, KB, shout out to KB. He tweeted
friend
last
of the
night.
pod.
A friend of the pod. Friend in real life.
Flex.
We love you, Caden's second letter.
Kevin Burgess.
He had a tweet. He's like, I don't like using my platform to get entangled in civilian affairs. And it made me think of 2 Timothy chapter 2.
Gosh.
Literally the language Paul tells Timothy. He tells Timothy, young man, young pastor, do not be entangled in civilian wars. Don't you know that you are a farmer, that you are an athlete, that you are a soldier? And I love culture. We're in culture. Yeah. I think it's fun to talk about things partaking in culture, but it's not gospel at the end of the day. And it's not the end all be all. I feel like there are bigger fish to fry for sure.
Definitely.
And one thing I will say too is I've had a lot of convictions. I saw a tweet this morning where somebody was like, man, I'm going to have to listen to gospel to kind of wash myself of everything I listened to last night between the two of those guys. And shout out to Ruslan too. I feel like Ruslan called it. I feel like these two guys are both sinful people. And Kendrick taking the moral high ground is corny to me. He's got some demons in his closet. I remember telling you, like, just because he exposed them doesn't make it right.
Yeah. You talking about them first doesn't mean that you're better.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So these guys both are. I feel like Kendrick has been talking to. He's trying to sun Drake. Yeah. I give Drake credit because at the very least, he's owning his stuff. Sure. Whereas Kendrick is like, well, I guess Kendrick is owning it too, but in a different way. But I feel like he's making himself look better than Drake because of his. Anyways, all that to say, civilian affairs, I think it's fun from time to time. I don't think we should make it our world. I'm not gonna think about hip hop for the rest of the day.
Right.
Or
you're not making reaction videos.
I'm not making reaction videos. And I love hip hop, bro. I love hip hop.
It's a good time.
It's a great time. You know, crazy how Kendrick didn't have no rest.
I get you did there.
In between.
Yeah.
He had 10 minutes?
Yeah. 12 to 15.
But then 10 minutes, Drake had a response. He didn't let that thing breathe or rest. And, it made me think about rest in my own life.
What a transition.
And sometimes I wonder, do I just give things 10 minutes?
That was good. The way you started it, I was with you for the sake of all right, we're going to get there. The way that you tied that up, that was good.
We do this.
That was good.
You see, we're talking about rest today on Shaping the Culture podcast, something that both Parker and I are terrible at.
Lord
Actually, I
Jesus.
think I'm better than him. Way better than
Oh,
him.
absolutely.
Way better.
Yeah.
But I compared to some,
I think you do pretty well.
I'm trying. We're working.
I mean, you have a day. Now, whether that day happens or not, you know what I'm saying?
Let me tell you why I think I'm good at rest or better at rest. It's because I had a mental breakdown in 2020. That's why. Well, we can get to in a second. But we want to talk about rest because I feel like it's a topic that's much needed in the body of Christ, and something that, man, especially with podcasting and content creation, entrepreneurship, like this just whole grind, work, sleep when I die,
Be
mantras,
consistent.
be consistent. It really does catch up to us, and it really does take us off of the path that God has for us, and it doesn't allow for us to live the life of abundance that Jesus promises us in the Gospels. And so before we jump into it, maybe like you could talk about why you're so terrible at rest.
That's crazy. That's a crazy way to put it. I think a lot of it.
Let me tell you how bad he is, bro.
All right, this is crazy.
I'll give this man breaks for both the church and the podcast, and I'll call him, checking in on him to see if he's watching a show, taking a nap. I call him, he's like, yeah, I'm working on some music stuff.
You'll call me, I'll answer from in this room.
I'm like, fam, you don't know how to sit still? Like, what's going on?
I don't. Here's the thing though. Some of it is I feel a very heavy burden. Like I feel a lot of responsibility for a number of things.
Yeah.
Some of that is rooted in truth. Or like it's rooted in truth, but I think the way that I walk it out isn't always healthy. And so for the podcast, right? I'm like, all right, I gotta shoot, I gotta edit, I gotta do thumbnails, I gotta do clips. I want to like think about how it can be better. I want to make sure that I'm not.
By the way, the Instagram clip you've been killing. The thumbnails for Instagram.
I appreciate it. I'm trying.
Man, new heights.
Hey man,
What a guy.
This Tim Ross one, that was
What a guy.
That was a struggle. But
Everybody needs a Parker in their life. All right, go ahead.
Put that on a
Justify
t-shirt.
why you don't rest well.
Nah, I don't even justify it. But so like I think because there's a lot that I am doing.
Yeah.
I'm fearful of things either not getting done well, or not being able to get done at all if I'm not involved in them. I think some of that is pride, and some of that is like a true sense of responsibility. The responsibility piece is like, yes, if I don't get this done, it's either going to get done poorly or it won't get done at all. And that has an impact because if your episodes don't get out, that kind of stops your whole thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Not that like if something were to happen to me or if I would be like, hey, bro, I'm done.
Yeah.
It'll get figured out.
Right.
But that's not the reality. I am doing it.
Right.
And so there are things I have to get done. The pride piece is if I am not actively involved in this thing is going to fail.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and this is my tension, sometimes that I feel like that is true. Maybe not fail, but it won't get done. That's not always a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like for church, for making the thumbnails or the verses or whatever. And I've told you about this. Like, I need to take a break, but I'm afraid that if I don't do it, nobody will. And then that poorly reflects on what does that say about the church? What does that say about what we care about this thing? What does that say about our representation on socials or YouTube or whatever? And so there's just like, if I don't do this, we're going to look bad. People are going to think this, whatever. And I put all this responsibility on myself to say, if I don't do this, all of this is going to happen. This all rides on me. So I have to get this done, which is like, that's not it. God doesn't need me for something to function. And like, there's a way to be responsible for what he's given me,
Right.
while still being able to say, this is what you have given me. And so you're in control.
Right.
And so if I need to take a minute and say, I can do that.
Yeah.
There's a way to do that properly so that I'm not just being like, hey guys, I'm gone. Yeah. And then like, you know what I'm saying? Like doing it irresponsibly. But yeah, so that's some of why is just like.
And I think there's a way to go about it. So I feel like one of the things that I've done, the older I've gotten, is I have prioritized what's most important. Somebody once said, your emergency is not my urgency, right? So take a look at everything I need to do for the week, and I prioritize what absolutely needs to get done.
Yeah.
What do I need to get started on, and what can take a back seat this week? and prioritizing that way. And so for those who know, Monday is my Sabbath. It's my off day.
Must be nice.
But the reason why I'm able to have Mondays is because I have boundaries. We could talk about this. Like I just say no nowadays. Like I won't take on something if I know that I can't do it. Or B, I've just kind of learned that like if it needs to get done, I need to structure my time in such a way that allows me to take that Monday off.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if I don't take that day off, one day I'm going to have to like the burnout, the frustration, whatever it is, the weariness, it's going to take me out. And it might take me out more than just 1 day a week.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if I don't do this for me, eventually my body's going to make me do it. And the way my body's going to make me do it is not going to be as gracious as the way I would do it.
Man, listen.
You know
that happened to me last week.
Uh-oh.
That's why I was sick. Because I don't get sick that often.
Yeah, when you said you were sick, I was confused.
When I get sick, more often than not,
Yeah.
it's because I'm not resting. Because like I've been around people who are just coughing, hacking, whatever, and I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like I'm good because I'm getting sleep, I'm doing whatever. When I have a lot of late nights and early mornings back to back, and I'm just always doing something, and I'm not taking time to sleep for a long time or rest or go to sleep early so I can get more sleep or just not do anything. Like I'm not even physically allowing my body time to just like recuperate because I'm always like going.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, bro, it's if you don't rest, like you're gonna get forced to rest at some point.
At some point.
And then like I can't do anything.
No.
So I'm down and out. I can't work, can't do whatever. And so that can impact my finances. That can impact my mental health to a certain point. But like now I'm good because I'm like, well, I had to sit down. I didn't do anything.
Well, here's the thing. Are you good?
Right now?
Are you good because you're feeling better? Or because you have rhythms of...
Right now I feel good because like I had to rest for a moment. And so now I feel like recharged and I'm ready to interact with people.
But you had to go MIA for like
2-3
days.
Yeah.
You got sat down. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
But I think to your point, another reason why I don't rest is because I don't always structure my time well. And so I'm not using my time effectively. And so when it comes down to the wire, sometimes I'm scrambling.
Yeah.
Or I'm resting on the front end.
Right.
Because I didn't plan out my time.
Right.
And so I'm just kind of, dilly-dallying.
Right.
And so then I have to like do everything all at once.
Right.
In reality, if I take like, all right, let me take these, honestly, like 30 minutes of just dedicated time, I'd be straight for a lot of stuff.
Right.
But I just have to make the decision to be like, all right, this isn't something I feel like doing.
Right.
But it needs to get done. And I know if I don't do it now, I'm going to have to do it later and it's probably not going to be as good. So let me just put forth the time and the effort now, plan it out, structure it, so then I can be excellent in what I'm doing.
Right.
And I can rest.
Right.
And it's a win-win for everybody.
Right. Right.
As opposed to me having to do it quick, so it's not going to be as good, which isn't good for anybody. For nobody. And then being impatient with everybody because I didn't do what I needed to do. Right. And now people are hitting me up. Hey, how's this? I'm getting angry as if it's their fault that I didn't do something in a timely manner.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of unnecessary things that come from me not like structuring out my time properly.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it. Like stewardship.
Yeah.
Stewarding your time well gives you the ability to rest. Right. So like I alluded to what happened to me in 2020. So in 2020, we planted a church August of 2019. 6 months later, COVID happened, March. And so everything changed for us. We went from building momentum in person, really like establishing, our presence in the city, getting new people. And then all of that was just kind of stripped from us and now everything had to go online. And I processed that very slowly. In my mind, I was like, well, let's pivot. So I'm like, all right, what equipment do we need to buy? Let's get on Instagram Live. Okay, let's do YouTube. Like, boom, boom, boom. We spent the first 2-3 months like restructuring our church, our approach to ministry, our philosophy of like all of that was, getting updated because we had this new reality. But then there was just this frustration, like, yo, this new system isn't working. How long are we going to be on YouTube? If you remember, we didn't know how long COVID was going to happen or keep us at home. And then on top of that, everything happened with George Floyd. We're in Minneapolis. That took a mental toll on me. And then there's some stuff that was going on back home in Ethiopia where I'm from. There was a civil war that broke out. And I remember like summer, July, August of 2020, I had my very first panic attack. And I didn't know it was a panic attack. I thought I was actually having a heart attack. But I would wake up in the middle of the night and my heart was beating and I was sweating and I felt like I was choking and I felt like I needed fresh air. Like I remember having going outside and walking and trying to catch my breath. And I felt like I began to be very short with y'all, the lead team. And, you know, I lacked love in the messages that I was giving, and I wasn't myself, and I was frustrated more than anything. I was thinking about quitting every single day. I was growing resentful towards whatever we were doing, what we were building. And I remember you guys sat me down and you're just like, hey, especially Yoni, he's just like, you need to get away for a month. Like, don't worry about us. We got this under control, but you just need to get away for a month. And I was like, nah, I can't do that, especially now with everything that's going on. I can't do that. It's like, no, you need to go and rest. So reluctantly, I went. And on that month, during that month, my gosh, first of all, I was able to hear my thoughts. I started journaling and I started to investigate. I didn't even have time to understand what I was feeling. So now I'm learning what I'm feeling. I'm making sense of what I'm feeling. I'm able to parse through, are these my thoughts? Is this Twitter? Because at the time, everybody was tweeting. I mean, it was election season. There was a lot. I'm like, wait, what do I actually think? What do I believe? I had so much outside noise. And then, okay, like, what do I believe about God? What do I believe about ministry? What do I believe about myself, leadership, all of that, right? And then I'm hanging out with friends and we're eating good, we're laughing. I'm like, I feel like I'm being restored. And I remember when I was in DC, it was my last stop before I came back home. A good friend of mine, a pastor friend of mine, was just like, hey, I'm glad that you had this month off, but what are you going to do when you go back? He said, like, you can't take a month off whenever you're feeling it. He's like, what's your rhythm of rest? And he showed it to me in different ways. He said, what are you doing daily? What are you doing weekly? And then what are you doing annually to get rest? And that's kind of when I adopted this philosophy. Okay, at the time, I was taking meetings any day, all day. But I said to myself, no more taking meetings after 6, 7 p.m. From 7 p.m. until I go to bed, I'm unwinding, eating dinner, spending time for myself. It doesn't matter how many meetings I had that. And another thing I did, he's like, yo, know your capacity. If you can't take more than 3 meetings a day, don't take more than 3 meetings a day. Like, know what your limit is, because it's taxing as a pastor leader. Because in one meeting, you're mourning with someone, another meeting, you're celebrating, another meeting, you're working through a difficult situation, and it takes a toll on you. And so if it's like an admin meeting or like a logistics meeting, that's okay. I could do like 4 or 5 of those. But and so he's like, what are you doing daily? I was like, all right, after 7 p.m., I'm unwinding. If I'm going out, if I'm seeing someone, it's because I want to hang out with them. I want to rest, so on and so forth. And then what are you doing weekly? So that's the Monday. It's like, well, every Monday I can't touch it. That's just me. What I want to do for me. What helps me rejuvenate and recoup and all of that good stuff. And then annually, vacation, making sure that you're taking at least 2 weeks off. And so I started doing that in 2020, and I've become a lot more healthier. I feel a lot better. And I remember in 2020 feeling like I'm going to need a sabbatical every year, because a lot of pastors and leaders, they take a month or 2 months every year now. It's the thing to do. Some take a sabbatical every 3 months. Others take it every 7 to 10 years. Everybody kind of does it differently. But at that time, I was like, man, there's no way I can go another 7 years without having this. But after implementing the Sabbath daily, weekly, and annually, bro, I haven't had a sabbatical since. That was 4 or 5 years ago. And so, I tried to take one in 2021, but my life blew up.
Life said otherwise.
Life said otherwise. And so that's when I realized, like, yo, if I don't rest, I'm going to get sat down.
Yeah.
Panic attacks? No, thank you. No, thank you. Sweating profusely? No, thank you. No, thank you, bro. And so I have been intentional after that. And so one of the things that you said that hinders you from taking breaks is pride. Let's unpack that a little bit. Because I think that that's a big reason why I have struggled and why I do struggle to take rest. I feel like we do put this weight on ourselves that if anything is going to be successful, it's on us.
Yeah, I think that That's a difficult thing to navigate because I think when you are an entrepreneur, there is the reality that if you don't get it done, it's not going to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel when I put out a song or a TikTok or whatever, and the numbers do really, really well, and I'm not just getting a lot of views, but I'm getting good engagement, and then I'm not just getting engagement on that one video. There's a trickle-down effect to other things that I've put out. Yeah. And then I have people who are saying, hey, let's work together, and then I'm able to have some side gigs going and all that kind of stuff. If I were to not engage any of those people who said, hey, let's work. Hey, this is great. Where can I find whatever? Because, and this is how I feel. And there's a healthy way to go about this, but this is just how I process it. I'm like, okay, if I put my phone down on D&D for the next day and say, I'm glad this did well, let me take a minute. I'm like, man, I'm missing opportunities. I'm missing connections. I'm going to miss out on these people who are engaging. They're not going to care. I'm going to get lost in the algorithm. I have to keep going if I want the success to continue because this is on me. Right. That attitude and that disposition, what I have gotten checked on is me saying that and acting that way is to say, God needs me to do this in order for him to do something. And he doesn't. If something happened to me where I could not function, if I lost my voice for the rest of my life, if my hands were broken, if whatever, I could still have something that just pop up or pop off and blow up. Yeah. Right. And that could be the song that takes me up and do whatever. And I have this amazing story or whatever. Like, I don't have to be involved for God to do what he wants to do. Right. It doesn't matter. Right. And so there is an element of, I do need to be responsible. I can't do one thing and be like, how come nothing's happening? It's all right, bro, like work. You know what I'm saying? Like there has to be some effort that's getting put in. But at the end of the day, we even talked about this. I remember when we talked about you quitting your job, like if God's not in it, like it's in vain. Right. And so, I feel like this unhealthy sense of responsibility sometimes that like, if I don't make this happen, nothing is going to happen. And so I think I'm constantly learning and being reminded of the balance of what it means to steward something well and put in the hours, put in the work, be faithful with it, make sure I'm managing it well, while also being able to know when to put something down and like operate in seasons. I think it was Jonathan McReynolds. I was watching an interview with him one time, and he was saying like, he said, I'm very much just like, whatever I'm doing in that season, that's what I'm doing. He said, if I'm on tour, I'm on tour. If I'm writing, I'm writing. If I'm performing and just hanging with friends, that's what I'm doing. But I'm not someone who, if I put out an album, I have 30, 40, 50 songs just in the bank. So that's not what I'm doing. Right. If you hear my album, that's what I wrote. There might be one or two songs and that's it. But if I don't feel like writing anything else, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to force something as if like I have to make it happen. I'm just going to be where I'm at. Right. And that was something that was encouraging to me because I was like, there have been times where I'm like, man, I should make a video. I should write a song. I should write a song about this. I'm just like, if I'm not feeling it, there's a time and a place to push through a lack of inspiration and just be disciplined. Right. But also there's also a time to be like, I don't have anything. I'd be pouring from an empty cup, and then at that point I'm just forcing it. Right. And that's not good for me. It's not good for anybody. Yeah. So those are some of my thoughts off that right away.
No, you know what's tough is because you're right in one sense that the Lord does use us. Mm-hmm. So when I think of somebody who doesn't work, who doesn't plan, budget, somebody that doesn't steward their resources, steward their relationships, their friendships, steward their opportunities well, I'm like, that's poor character. You know what I mean? So like on one end, God has designed us and created us to work, to build. In one sense, it is on us, right? Like we do have to show up. We do have to study. We do have to practice. We do have to put in the 10,000 hours. We do have to learn. We do have to have accountability. Like that all is true. But then on the flip side, the flip side to the coin, there's also this real reality that like, if the Lord's not in it, then it's going to be really difficult for anything to have movement. Proverbs talks about this though. Like, if you don't work, you don't eat. Yeah. It's as simple as that. Like you don't need to pray about it. You don't need God to breathe on it. You want to eat, apply for a job and work with your hands. Simple as that. I think we over spiritualize this whole like, oh, what is God's call for my life?
Yeah.
To work.
It's to be faithful.
It's to be faithful.
To love people, make them glorified.
That's it. But then on the flip side, to your point, I do think though that there are who gives us the sight, who gives us the strength, who gives us the gift sets, who gives us, or the skill sets, or who gives us the opportunities, who gives us the breath in our lungs. You know what I mean? Like God works with us to accomplish his will. That like on one end, we do have to put in the work, but on the flip side of that, the Lord also is helping us put in the work. The Lord is also meeting us in our work, and the Lord is also helping us accomplish the things that we set out to do. And so to me, it's not an either or, it's a both and. And I think that the problem is sometimes in my own life, I feel like my side of the thing, or you know, what I bring to the table carries more weight than what God brings to the table. That I don't need God as much as I need myself. That I have more to offer than what God can offer. And I heard somebody once saying, rest is believing that God can do more in your off day than you could ever do in the 6 days that you worked. And that's the reality of it all. Bro, like God don't work like we work. God doesn't have the strength that we have. Our strength is feeble, bro. God, he doesn't see things the way we see things. He's not. And so when God wants to show up and do a thing, best believe he'll do it, and he won't ask for any permission, and he'll do it better than anybody else. He'll be more consistent than anybody else, and he'll do it better than anybody else had envisioned. And so rest for me is this, it's this faith move. It's me believing that his work is greater than my work, that his vision is greater than my vision, that his contribution is greater than my contribution. Yes, we work together. Yes, he's uniquely designed me, and he's wired me, and he's gifted me, and he's positioned me. But I mean, at the same, like he doesn't need all that. You know what I mean? And I think that rest allows us to believe he doesn't need that. And rest allows us to believe that God is the X factor in whatever it is that we are doing. That God is the secret sauce, that without God, a lot of these things aren't going to work out or won't happen. Right. I remember this pianist giving this testimony. She's a Christian. And before she went out and did her performance, she asked the Lord, she said, "Hey Lord, would you show me how much I need you? Would you show me how dependent I am on you?" She went out on stage, sat at the keyboard or the piano. And it's so funny. She says she forgot how to play. She didn't have the memory. She didn't have the music theory in her mind. She didn't know where went what, like she didn't know how to play certain chords. Like literally everything went out the window. She learned from that experience, like, man, I rely on God for muscle memory. I rely on God for just memory in general. Like I need he has blessed me with a mind that's able to learn, that's able to retain, and that's able to perform. And so, sure, but we could say that she put in the hours, she studied, she worked hard, she did what she did, but it's also God that was undergirding, like he was behind all of that and allowed for all of that to happen. You know what I mean? And I think it's both. And I think rest allows us to believe that it's both, and he's the X factor in all of this.
And I've learned that when in resting, I'm able to come back better because I'm able to, like, rest is required for everybody, right? It's not just a suggestion, like it's a commandment. Right. It's to take a Sabbath. As someone who really enjoys time by myself, I forget how necessary it is just for me to be effective. Because when I take time to sit and just, one thing that I like to do when I'm resting is be by myself so that I can just like ponder. I love to just think and just like chase rabbit trails and just think. Just think about things and wonder. And when I do that, that's where I get creative ideas. That's where I get analogies I might use in a song. That might be conversations that I bring up to people. I might be, why did I say this in this conversation? Oh, I didn't realize that I still feel this about this person. And I'm able to unpack emotions and memories and just things that I wouldn't be able to do if I'm actively going, because I'm not allowing my mind the free space to do what it needs to do.
Right.
And so when I'm taking time to rest, to trust God to refill me, to take time to do what I need to do to be rejuvenated, I'm able to come back. I've even come back from taking breaks from church and be like, hey, let's do this, let's try this. There are new ideas that I have. I really want to try whatever, because I'm giving myself the space to just expand and rest and like do what it needs to do, rather than feeling like I'm stretched so far that I don't have any margin to give grace for mistakes, or to, oh, you know what, let me look this over one more time. So because I'm doing so much that I'm starting, like my work is starting to decline.
Right.
And so it gets to a point where like I need to, for the sake of even doing this well, I need to stop.
Right.
I need to rest, because if I'm not doing this well, then it's a disservice to anybody, any and everybody. I'm not doing well for myself, and it's starting to negatively impact the things that I'm supposed to be serving people for. Yeah. And so I can't even effectively serve people well if I'm not taking time to rest for myself.
That's good.
And I think I'm consistently learning that it's not a selfish thing to like take care of myself.
No, not at all.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that learning that it's okay to say no to people has been a really, really big thing for me. And I remember, I think it was 2022 was one of the first times I remember saying no to somebody. And I was really, really scared, because it was after I already said it, like, yeah, I'll do it. And they asked, like, hey, can you make this song? I want to try whatever. I was like, oh, I can look into it. I don't know, whatever. Yeah. And then I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I don't really want to, and I don't think I can effectively. Yeah. And I remember telling a mutual friend, I was like, yo, I don't think I can do it. They're like, yo, just tell them you can't do it. I was like, but what if they get angry though? Like, what if they look at me different because I said yes and I said no? They're like, yo, it's not that deep. No. And then I texted the person. I was like, hey, no, I don't think there's something I can do. I don't have capacity there. Okay, no worries. I was like, oh my gosh, it's not that big. I can say no and like I'm okay. Yeah. They're okay. We're okay. And I have my free time back. Right. You know, like I have more time to do what I needed to do. And so even learning how to honor myself and being like, yo, if this isn't something that I want to do or something I have capacity for, it's okay to say no. Right. And understand that like that's not, it's okay to be selfish or whatever. It's like, yo, if I can't do it, I can't do it. And it's okay if there's certain things that I just don't want to do. Right. Because that contributes to me being able to rest as well. Because if I don't know how to honor myself and honor healthy boundaries to the fact that I'm just accepting everything and taking on projects, like that's not fair to me, and that's not fair to the people who I'm gonna end up letting down because I'm not managing things well. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it's a mission, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
I think part of the problem is we don't know how to embrace limitation. Yeah. We just got done reading Emotionally Healthy Discipleship. And he has a whole chapter on that in that book. And he's just like, hey, you have to know that you can't do it all. Yeah. And you have to be okay with that. Like you're not Superman. That you are just a mortal man who has capacities, has limitations, has a cutting point, and you have to live with that, and you have to know that and be okay with that, because if you do not live within your limitations, one, you will live as if you don't need God. Yeah. And then B, you will stretch yourself out to the point, like you said, where you're not leaving room for creativity. You're not coming in with better ideas. You're not coming in inspired because you haven't had the time to just breathe and just sit and take the time to really just let the thing that you just completed live, you know? And I think that's partly why some people who, I mean, we were talking about Kendrick and Drake. I think part of the reason why Kendrick is so great is because he doesn't feel like he has to put out an album a year.
This man will put out an album and disappear.
For 4 years. And he'll take the time to think about what he wants to talk about. He'll take the time to think about what it is that he wants to contribute to culture and society. He'll take the time to think about what message he wants to give. Yeah. And then he'll take the time to think about how he wants to deliver that. And then he'll sit and he'll think, and then he'll rethink. And, you know, and so I do feel like when we take the time to embrace our limitations, we do ourselves a favor and we do the thing that we're contributing to a favor as well.
It lets us be more intentional. Because there some of my favorite artists, not that only people who practice this are good, but some of the people that I know are really good do practice this. So Like Adele will make an album and just be gone. You don't hear nothing from her.
Yeah.
But then she'll come back and it's just like, whew.
Classics.
You know what I'm saying? Justin Timberlake. This man don't put out albums on the regular like that. But when he does, mine is the one joint. You don't like this last album? All right.
I gotta go back to it.
We'll put that on Patreon. But like, point being, like, Justin Timberlake, Adele, Bieber, Kendrick, Swoop is another person. Andy Mineo, debate for another time. But point being,
Free smoke.
People. He said free smoke. Hey, get him on the podcast, bro. That's what you got to find out.
That's Andy, if you're listening.
You better hit up his publicist.
Come on, Shaping the Culture podcast.
But anyway, point being, I like those are all people that I have heard verbalize this, and people who have worked with them have verbalized. There's someone who they want to make great art. They'll take the time, do the work, and then they'll just let it sit.
Yeah,
and they because they need to take time to live life, pull back. Go ahead,
man. This is what I really want to get into. Did you notice that God rested after the sixth day? So this first half of the conversation, we're talking about we need rest because we've got to embrace limitation. Mm-hmm. We need to rest because if we don't, it'll stifle our creativity. If we don't rest, we will get sat down. Yeah. If we don't rest, we will be short with others. Yeah. We won't produce quality content. But to what you were just talking about, bro, rest isn't just about doing that. Rest is also taking the time to stop and think about and process and celebrate and delight in the work that God just graced you to complete.
Yeah, that's good.
Bro, like, God didn't rest because he was tired. Unlike us, he's immortal. Mm-hmm. This man don't get tired. Mm-hmm. God does not sleep. He's up all the time. Yeah. He was before. He was here before, and he will always be. Mm-hmm. And the thing about God is, like, this man doesn't run out of creativity. I keep saying this man. Our God does not run out of creativity.
I'm about to say, you got to get a comment about that.
I know, right? Our God doesn't run out of creativity. He doesn't run out of ideas. He doesn't run out of strength. He rested because he needed to delight in what he just created in the last 6 days. And you know what's crazy, bro? All that he created in those first 6 days, we still today in 2024 have not even fully processed and figured out all that went into it.
Yeah.
Think about, like, he created the sea one day. Mm-hmm. The sea, the ocean is one of the things that we have still very much to learn about. We have very little knowledge on. We don't even know all the different creatures that live in the sea. We just know.
And we're on this planet, but we know about black holes in different dimensions and all this other stuff. It's like, you live on the ocean,
bro. You know what I'm
but
saying?
You don't know nothing.
So, like, God stopped and said, "Man, this is good.
Yeah.
What did I?" Yeah. And the reason why that resonates with me is because, and I was thinking about this year, 2024. We're entering into May. And I feel like I've done a lot in the last 4 months. I've had some of the biggest interviews that I've ever had. I finished a podcast tour.
Your second one?
My second one. I've done a bunch of speaking engagements. And I found myself finally back home feeling anxious. Like, what's next? What do I got to do next? And all right, who can I book? And what conversations need to be had? And do we do more live shows this year? Do I wait for the tour next year? And there's some opportunities that you know about that I'm trying to work through right now. And God's like, hey, can you just stop and say thank you?
Yeah.
Can you just stop and just acknowledge all that you have done? All that I've allowed you to do?
Yeah. The
moments that you had, the opportunities that you had, the work that you were able to do, the impact that you were able to have. Like, can you just stop and rest and just journal and just think about, like, wow, we did that.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And I feel like part of the reason why we are not content as Christians is because we don't take the time and rest and think about all that's actually happening in our lives. It's hard to be content when you don't know what to be content about. People are like, oh, I don't know, like, what to be even grateful for, or
Yeah.
what I need to be content about. I remember doing this with a couple of people in our church. I'm like, hey, I did this exercise with them. This week, every day, write down 10, 15 things that have gone right the day before. And they sat and they came back and they said, I had more than 10, 15 things that went right. And I was like, okay, how many things went wrong? Oh, 2 or 3. I was like, do you notice how the 2, 3 overshadowed the 10, 15? And we sit and we keep thinking about it. That's why we're not, like, if you just took time to rest and process and say, what did God just do this past week at work? What conversations were wins? What goals did I hit? What projects did I complete? The very presentation I had that I was stressing over, how well did that go? Did I really stress out for something that I needed to stress out about? Or did God come through yet again? Right. And I think that, like, I'm in a season right now where I'm learning that rest is much more than just recuperating and gaining our strength and our creativity back. But it's also taking the time to stop and say, wow, look at what he did. Look at what just happened the last 6 days. And I feel like doing that, you come back with more inspiration. You come back with more vision. It's not just strength that you come back with, but it's even, man, I can even riff on this for a little bit. The confidence in your God. Like, rest breeds faith, because when you stop and delight in the work that he's graced you to complete, you're like, oh, bro, for instance, like this tour. Last year, I took a financial hit. Couple. It's a little rough. This year's tour, not only were all the costs covered, but we made a couple of, we made some coins. It wasn't a lot.
You're not rich, but you got a little money in your
like
pocket.
a little, it's a little something, a little thank you.
Got to go to a large. You know what I'm saying?
But bro, like, I didn't even process that until I rested, and I was like, yo, God did that. I now have a little bit more faith for the next tour. That I don't have to go in as anxious as I did going into this tour, because the way the last tour went, I can go in with more confidence and faith because I took the time to stop and acknowledge what he did.
And it doesn't become as common as it does when you're always on the move. Because when you're always doing it, even in just having conversations, right? Not everybody can. Having a conversation for 30 to 45 minutes, let alone an hour, 2 hours. That's not a normal thing. You know what I mean? That's a skill that you've developed and that you're graced with. But you doing that all the time, it's not that it loses its luster, but it just kind of becomes like, all right, it's another conversation. It's a job to do. You know what I'm saying? But when you stop and you look at, like, man, I really got to talk with X person, and we talked about this, we talked about that, the dynamic of the conversation, the way that this went, the way that such and such went, that's not a normal thing. No. And when you get to sit and process that, it's like, yo, this is crazy. Or even, like, I was talking to a friend about this. Just the act of creativity in and of itself is such a unique experience, to have something in your head and then have that come to, like, reality and fruition. You know what I'm saying? Like, something that was not in existence that you're thinking of that now becomes something tangible that other people can experience. That's like the nature of doing that already is phenomenal. But when you do that on a regular basis, it's not like, if you talk to people who are musicians, right? They're coming up with a lick or whatever. It's not that it's insignificant, but it's just what they do. But the nature of them, like, yo, this was not in existence before. And you, like, brought life to this by God's grace. You know what I'm saying? But when you're doing that on a regular basis, you're going to a gig, you're making music, you're doing whatever, you're not always thinking, wow, this is such an amazing experience. God is so good. I can't, because, like, that's what God does. That's why he's so amazing. That's a different conversation. But when you're doing that all the time, it kind of loses its that spark. You know what I'm saying? But when you take time to, like, look back over what you've done, what's been created, or just, like, listening to music in the car, bro. This doesn't happen all the time, but it's frequent enough where I'm just like, sometimes music just hits, bro. Where I'm just driving and I'm just like, man, I've heard this song a million times, but it's just, today. I'm like, yo, the sun is setting. It's not too hot in the car. I'm by myself. I'm on the freeway. Got a little bit longer to go till I get home, and I'm just like, man, this is just a good time. Because I'm not like, do I use this for this edit? Do I use this for this? Do I do this for whatever? I'm like, man, I'm just having a great time. I'm chilling. And so I think another thing that you gain is just that respect for what the craft is, and that I think fuels
That's
that
good.
that new perspective that you come back with, because it's not just this thing that you do. It's just like, no, this is a really special experience that I get to participate in. And I feel like that's also something that God reveals to you once you like sit down. It's like, yo, look at what I'm giving to you. Like, this is something that you get to do, and your eyes get open to a new perspective, and you come back with this rigor and this appreciation for what it is that He's put in your hands. And it's not just something that you do, because when you're gifted with something, I think it can become a little bit almost profane in a sense, because it's just like, this is just what I do, right? Like, people who are really hospitable at our church or wherever, that's what they do. Not that they feel like it's unimportant, but I think that when you see it all the time, it just kind of becomes like, oh, yeah, they're really good with people or whatever. To me, that's not my gift, and I'm like, wow, that's phenomenal. I've had to learn how to like, man, that's really cool. But for them who do it all the time, it may not be that big of a deal. Outside looking in, though, I'm like, yo, that's a really important and necessary gift, because how are you? I'm not trying to do all that. You know what I'm saying? But I think that like when you take the time to understand, like, yo, this is a gift that you've been given, and learn like how special it is. Sometimes it takes rest in order for you to be able to see like how special that thing is. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000%. I feel that every time. I say this to you guys all the time. Whenever I visit other churches, or I leave and come back, when I take a break from Parazim or rest from Parazim and I come back, I have a whole new appreciation for our community, because when you're, like you said, to your point, when you're in it day in and day out, you just become too familiar with it. The ins and outs, the behind the scenes, the workload, all of that just kind of becomes monotonous, and it just, at some point you kind of just forget the magic of what's taken place, or you kind of forget the beauty of what's taken place, because you're so caught up in the everyday details of it all. And it is when you step away, take a rest, break from all of that, you come back and you're like, this is supernatural. Like, people are meeting God. People are maturing in their faith. People are forgiving. People are being reconciled. People are asking the hard questions. People are taking accountability. This isn't regular, but it took hospitality to be hospitable. Like, I had a meeting with somebody this week, and she was asking me about our church, and I was telling her our age range and things like that, and she lit up. She's like, what? That's incredible. I told her the oldest person in our church is like 43, 44. She's like, that's the youngest person at my church. Wow. She's like, I didn't even know young people love Jesus like that. She's like, you just encouraged me. Yeah. She's like, you have a church full of young people. Yeah. There's hope for the next generation. In it, I'm like, man, we need some older people. We got a lot of immaturity going on.
A lot of wishy-washiness.
A lot of wishy-washiness. The giving ain't there. Like, people come to church when they feel like, I'm just over here thinking about all of that. And she's like, no, but you got people who love you. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Hey, yo.
I guess we do, huh?
Hey, yo. And so, that's a phenomenal point. I just think rest is important, because it allows you to see things properly. You put it in its right context, you know? And I think that, like, what rest also allows you to do is it allows you to enjoy God. So it's not just a thing that you do to get energy back and get your strength back. It's not just something to do to delight in the work that He's graced you to do, but it's also an opportunity for you to just delight in the Lord. Yeah. That's what they did on Sabbath. They, like, all they did was go to the synagogue. They just went and they partook in whatever God had for them for that day. And I think there's something special about taking the time to stop and acknowledge God. I think we're supposed to acknowledge Him in all that we do. We're commanded to pray without ceasing. I think that, like, we need to include Him in every part, in every facet of our lives. But it's different when we have God be a part of our day versus when we actually give Him our day. Yeah. And say, like, this is today. It's just, I'm delighting in what you allowed me to do, but, like, I'm extremely sensitive to you now. Yeah. Like, maybe my Devo time goes longer today. Maybe I'm watching a couple of sermons today. Maybe I'm having intentional conversations about God with friends. Whatever it is, like, just taking the time to acknowledge Him. I think that does wonders for our soul too. I think that it recenters us. I think it brings us back to what God has for us. Or, I mean, the greatest purpose of our lives is to know God and to be known by God. That is why we're saved.
Yeah.
The reason why the Father sent Jesus down to die for the sins, to die on the cross for our sins, it's not just so that we can go to heaven. It's so that he can so that Jesus can restore our relationship with the Father. And I feel like there was a hefty sacrifice that was made in order for us to not just delight in the things that he allows us to do, but also delight in him alone.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's, and you and I have talked about how like, yo, we gave this afternoon to him. We gave this evening to him. And I woke up the next day different. I know there are many times where I'll go on a prayer walk, a 6-7 mile prayer walk, and I come back feeling lighter. Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Nothing is different. Got the same problems, got the same responsibilities, got some meetings later on.
Yeah.
But it took half a day or it took a day to say, hey, God, like what's going on up there?
Yeah.
Or here's what's going on in my heart. And just releasing my burden, knowing his words. Bro, there's something powerful. There's something powerful about just opening up your Bible and just reading. Nobody needs to explain it. There's just something supernatural that happens when we hear or we read the words of God.
Yeah.
And I think that like, that's what our soul is longing for, to just be in his presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you feel that once you hit, I think everyone, I'll speak for myself. I feel that. So it'll be a cycle where, let's say I'm starting on a good foot, right? I'm in God's presence on a regular basis. I'm praying. I'm in the Word. I'm hypersensitive to what I'm listening to, what I'm watching, all this kind of stuff. And then usually, I'll get busy. Things kind of come up, and it starts to waver a little bit. And I feel like, oh man, I got to get back, right? Then I get busier. I'm like, oh, I should, but it's just the season I'm in, whatever. Yeah. And then it gets to a point where like, man, I really miss like the Lord. Like I know he's here, but I really miss just like that feeling of closeness that I have. And it gets to a point where I'm just like, man, I just gotta cut some stuff out because I need that. Right. I need that back. I need that to function. I need that to just, I don't feel like I'm outside of God's will, but there's a richness that's not there. There's a quality of the relationship that's not there because I'm not doing my part in the partnership. Yeah. And so he's never going to leave me, but there's a difference because we haven't talked in a while. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't forget what his voice sounds like, but it's like, man, we haven't like spent time together. There's some stuff we got to talk about that I've been putting off to the side. And I'm starting to feel it more. There's some stuff that I'm doing more habitually because I haven't felt that, man. I know when I talk to him, I'm gonna get checked, so I don't want to do that because his scent is still there. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so there are things that like with my mom and my parents were like, when we're tight, like there's certain things I'm like, all right, let me just take care of this. Because it might be difficult, but I care more about the relationship than I do about how I do in this moment. Right. But when there's conflict, when there's distance, when we haven't spent time together, it's easier to kind of let certain things slide. It's like, we'll be all right. Yeah, I'll clean up. I'll clean up later. But it gets to a point where I'm just like, man, I can't continue on like this. Right. If I want to be better, if I want to be where I say that I am, or where I can't say I value this thing and then act this way. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. And it just gets to a point where I'm just like, man, I got to get back. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Got to get back.
Got to.
It makes a world of a difference. As you're talking, it kind of reminds me of like how natural relationships go too. Like when you haven't talked to a friend in so long, you start to feel it. And you start to think like, I know what he sounds like. I know what she sounds like. I know we're good. But like, there's some things that have been happening in my life. There's some updates that I have. There's some things I need to work through. There's some questions that I have. Or it doesn't always have to be that deep. Like, man, it'd just be nice to hang out and laugh and just enjoy each other's presence. Like, you don't always need to have something to talk about to go to God. I think rest allows you to go to him, no matter what you're feeling. Yeah. And sometimes just going to him, just to go to him, also leaves an impact on you. Yeah. And so, no, that's good. Yeah. Rest. So good.
Necessary.
Any thoughts on that before we wrap this one up?
I do think it's a skill. it's something.
Yeah.
It's something that can be improved.
Yeah.
Because I think that everybody has different ways that they're able to execute rest. You have to figure it out. But I think that the positions and responsibilities that I have do take a little bit more creativity for me to figure out what rest looks like for me.
Right.
And so for me, it may be more challenging to figure out what a weekly Sabbath looks like. Mm-hmm. And so maybe I need to maximize more of a daily Sabbath, because like maybe I won't get every single Saturday to myself. Maybe that's just the reality of it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And if that's the case, okay, what can I do to either make sure that 90% of the time that that's happening, or how can I restructure things so that that can happen? Mm-hmm. Or what does it look like to do that during the week so that it's not as critical for me to get that, like, man, if I don't get today, okay, what can I do so that I can make it a little bit easier on myself? Right. And so I think one is encouragement to myself, and maybe anybody else who has a difficult time resting, is that it's not, it's something that can be improved. Right. And so like take baby steps, and also like just trust that like God can do more. God's in control.
That's like, that's great advice, because I feel like sometimes somebody's like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to, but it's just like, to your point, it's a skill, work at it. Yeah. You know, like maybe you're in a season where you just find rhythms of Sabbath in your day. Mm-hmm. Once you maximize that, find a day you can carve out. Yeah. And then, you know, like just build, like work with what you've got.
Yeah. Cause that's, I mean, like something even for me, like after, I think at 10, either at 10 or 11, my phone goes on D&D automatically. And so just off of that, like I honestly that's what I should do. I should move it earlier. Because once I'm not getting notifications, I'm just not thinking about stuff. So if I'm reading, if I'm watching something, if I put my phone on the other side of the room and put it on D&D, I'm not hearing it. Yeah. I have to physically get up. And so that's where like laziness can, works to my benefit. Yeah. But yeah, I think take steps, and then also just trusting, like for me right now, I had like a video that did like pretty well on TikTok a while back. And I've been like, oh man, I got to make something else. But I don't have any ideas that I'm actively moving on, or that excite me, or that I really want to do. Cause I also have just been busy with like life and other stuff, and being like, that's okay. Yeah. Like I'm just all right. And so if I have an idea, cool. If I don't, whatever. And learning, okay, if I do want to do something, what does it look like for me to be disciplined and say, I'm going to work through the frustration or through the lack of inspiration, and let me be responsible. But also like, maybe it's just not what God wants me to focus on, or maybe this isn't what I want to focus on. And that's also okay. And so learning to manage like, there's okay for there to be seasons. Just like learn how to navigate that as well. It's not always like rest or not rest. Some stuff maybe you're just not doing right now. You know what I mean? So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's a bar. I'm gonna hold you accountable to it, because we know how you are with rest.
Yeah, bro. Please.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm learning how to. I could be better too. Like you said, it's a skill. So I think I've got some things down, but I've been convicted in this season that I need to learn how to delight in what I've accomplished. Yeah. Through His grace in this season. I think that's another thing I'm going to work towards in this season of my life. But
it's real.
Yeah, I hope those that are tuning in, you've got regular rhythms, you've got things that you're doing to help you recuperate and rejuvenate and all that good stuff. And so you weren't meant to do it all. We got limitations, and we're called to invite God into our process, into our lives, and let Him be the X factor, that it doesn't all have to be on you.
And communicate with people.
Yeah.
Because I think
draw boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think letting people know, like, hey, this is something I need to restructure. So that people, when I tell y'all, like, hey, I can't do X, Y, and Z, that brings an awareness, so that as things are talked about, that's getting factored in. Because if I'm just like, oh, I'm good. Like, okay, cool. Do this and this and this and this. Right. But communicating with friends, family, whatever, like, hey, I'm kind of like maxed out. And so like, part of accountability is them being able to come alongside and be like, okay, then hey, let's take this off your plate. Right. And that helps too.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely, that part. Ask for help. It is.
It's tough. We'll talk about that. That's the next episode.
Part
Asking
2.
for help.
Asking for help.
I don't do it.
We know. I know. All right. Now y'all know. And so we don't got time to unpack that right now. Until next time, family. Peace and grace.